Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Robert Rule Show. I'm your host, Robert Rule. Today is Sunday, April 13th, 2014. It's been a really busy week. It's been I guess some would call it an exciting week. For me, it's been a very tiring week and a very tiring weekend. I had lots going on. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but I pretty much have set what I'm going to talk about this evening. But first, let's get to your headlines. Ladies and gentlemen, here are your headlines this evening. Cowboys push back feds in ranch showdown. Nevada fight revives sagebrush rebellion. Control our borders, not our ranchers. Next, wild horses targeted for roundup in Utah. This week is the week of the blood moon, ladies and gentlemen. In case you didn't know, the heavens are putting on a celestial show next week. And one Christian pastor is convinced it's a sign from God. Here we go again. It's talked about in ancient civilizations. It's, part of the part of a tetrad or whatever they call that thing. It's a set of complete and consecutive lunar eclipses. And this particular one is set to begin on April 15th and continue in roughly 6-month intervals until October 2015. According to NASA, seeing 4 complete lunar eclipses in a row is very rare. And you know as well as I do, we've seen a lot in our lifetime. If you were born in the 70s, this generation has seen a lot of things that won't come again for thousands of years. What's even stranger is that Americans have a front row seat. The most unique thing about the 2014-2015 tetrad is that all of them are visible for all parts of the U.S. So it's very interesting, and of course you're going to have people, like the crazy people that wanted to ride the comet. You're going to have crazy people coming out and saying, all hell's going to rise from the earth and we're going to be overrun by zombies and crap like that. But what's even more interesting, ladies and gentlemen, if you study these different, I guess you could call them cults. A lot of the rich and powerful belong to these different kinds of cults, and everything they do is based on these events. It all has to do with numbers and things like that. That's why you always hear the number guys, talking about 9/11 and stuff like that, because when the people that control the world want to get something done, since they're so superstitious, they usually do it around this time. Anytime there's an event like this going on. I'm not superstitious. There may be something to it, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you could call in and tell us. But let me get on with the news here. All right. They're going to debut a pot vending machine. So for all you potheads out there, there you go. You'll be able to put your money in and get your pot. Tech insiders dumped shares ahead of the slide. Many of you know the stock market has gone down, just like I said it would. Didn't I say that? Didn't I predict that? Whenever everything's going up, you can always count on it coming down. So we predicted another one. It's so easy to predict this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. And people say, "Well, you're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist." Or whenever you predict the outcome of something, they never remember. So record high 60% of Californians say they pay too much tax. Well, you people wanted the tax, Or are all those people who voted for all those taxes moving out? A lot of people will say they're moving to Texas. Chances of getting audited by the IRS is lowest in years, according to a report. Walgreens urged to leave the USA for a tax cut. Investors group lobbies for shift to Europe. Millions of Android devices vulnerable to heartbleed bug. And a lot of people said I was crazy for going to the phone. I used to be an Android person, but now who's laughing? Obama lets NSA exploit some online flaws. That's, ladies and gentlemen, is why you get an antivirus or an operating system that does not have a government backdoor. Homeland Security app. See something, send something. And if you want to know the gist of that, here it is. Ohio Homeland Security officials. This is Ohio, ladies and gentlemen, are asking smartphone users to see something and send something with the release of an app to forward reports and photos of suspicious activity. Now, according to Homeland Security, and these are in documented reports, what is suspicious activity? Having a Ron Paul sticker, having an InfoWars sticker, paying with cash, scratching your personal spots, hanging out, having nothing to do, enjoying the sunshine, speaking English. That's probably in the report. I mean, it sounds stupid, ladies and gentlemen, but it could be anybody. The quote-unquote A Safer Ohio app for both the Apple and Android devices is being released shortly before the one-year anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombings, in which, of course they associate that with something because we all know that they had drills that day, and then they were telling people on the loudspeakers, you might hear an explosion, don't be afraid. They bombed sniffing dogs. The brothers could be heard saying, I didn't do anything. So, a lot of questions there. The app, now available for free online, allows Ohioans, and I know somebody's recording this right now and sending it to Homeland Security. Freedom of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Freedom of speech. Ohioans to relay both tips and photos of questionable activity to Homeland Security analysts for examination and potential investigation. Officials hope Ohioans might use Safer Ohio to point out anything suspicious they spot at spring and summer events that attract large crowds. The public's reporting of suspicious activity is one of our best defense against terrorist threats. There are no terrorist threats, ladies and gentlemen. Ohio Department of Public Safety Director John Bourne said this in a statement. So, like I said, this suspicious activity is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see here. White males only. What about diversity in late night? Jimmy Fallon is late night's black man. I mean, I have watched a couple episodes. My girlfriend loves it. I sit down and watch a couple episodes. I said, my God, it's Soul Train. You're telling me that there's no diversity in late night? Jimmy Fallon has more black guests than anyone in history. So I don't understand the merit of that line. Jerry Lewis, women are funny, but not when crude. 4.9 magnitude earthquake rattles central Idaho. Gas station signs with gay slur causing controversy. Foreigner dies of MRSA in Saudi Arabia. 8 infected. shock. 7 babies found dead in a Utah home. Reportedly, this woman was having kids and killing them. And if you take a look at her picture, she's got the crazy eyes, just like Hillary Clinton. Texas City to reuse sewage for drinking water. Ukraine says Russia waging war. Kiev government to deploy troops. Yeah, that'll end quickly. I love the new Navy ship. It will fire lasers, use electric guns, and look like a fishing boat on radar. 3 dead in shootings at Kansas Jewish Center. I guess there was also one around here. New York Police Department rushes to protect New York City Jewish community. So it's going on all over. People are gunning for Jewish people. Politics test Silicon Valley's Russian ties. Windows opens on secret camp within Guantanamo. Fact-checking journalism gains momentum. Yeah, because that can't be wrong. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's some updates. Historic. Feds forced to surrender to American citizens. The Bundy Ranch, the government owns nothing and controls everything. Homeland Security app. We talked about that. TSA to expand behavior screening. The Tamiflu scandal will be repeated and people will die unless drug companies release data. So, there are your headlines this evening. Mike, what's happening, brother?
Hey, how's it going with you tonight, Rob?
I couldn't be more happier.
Excellent. Congratulations on the new toy, by the way.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. I'm loving it.
Yeah, but very interesting headlines tonight. Very interesting.
Well, that's not really all of them. What I want to talk about, Mike, is the big one that nobody's talking about. Well, there's actually 2, but I want to talk about the Army. There's a report that says the Army is taking away the Apache helicopters from the National Guard. What do we know about that, Mike?
Well, basically what's happening is, and here's what the Pentagon is stating, okay? The Pentagon is stating in order to save costs that they cannot no longer loan the Apache helicopters, the Blackhawks, the Chinooks, to the National Guards of each state. You can see what happens when a state gets an Apache or let's say a Blackhawk. The federal government actually subsidizes the maintenance and the upkeep of the helicopter. So what's happening is the federal government's coming back in to the states and saying, hey, we need our helicopters back because, we're going to mothball, a lot of them. And, since these are newer ones, we're going to put them in the regular active Army. That's what they're doing. So the hidden story behind this is, folks, they're mothballing our Army right now, our military technology, believe it or not. That's the real story that's hidden. Plus, on top of it, I would assume that if the states were to get in an argument with Washington on, some crazy level, the states, would have really no defense.
So basically, it was stupid on the part of the states to give over control of their National Guards to the federal government.
Right. Well, it was stupid, but again, remember, it's the federal government who gave them these helicopters and who were paying for the maintenance and upkeep. And when the federal government wanted to stop doing that, then they asked for in mothball, probably 1/3 of the helicopters. They said, well, we need the newer ones back because we're going to put them in the regular, active duty, military ranks, or pool, as they say. So technically, I mean, can you see in Ohio's budget that we're taking, spending any money to take care of Apaches or Blackhawks? No, because the state doesn't pay for it. It's the federal government.
If from what happened in Nevada from happening, I'd be all in.
Right.
Because what happened, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you were sleeping because you didn't see it on the mainstream media. There was a media blackout. Some are reporting the blackout was directed by the White House. I even have a report here from somebody on the inside. And let me read it for you real quick here. It states, alert, this needs to be sent to all personnel in the field in the Nevada area. At 17:50 hours Eastern Time, I was contacted by my source within the Department of Homeland Security regarding the current situation at the Bundy Ranch. For those of you that don't know what was going on there, I still don't even have all the details. I'm waiting to make a judgment on this. However, I don't think you need 90 vehicles and armed agents with AR-15s or whatever else they had, kind of firepower and whatnot, going to a ranch to take their cattle. So a bunch of cowboys, a bunch of patriots, some militia started to head to Nevada. I believe they're probably still en route because they're probably not buying what's going on. I don't think that a government agency would back down that easily. But Mike, you have some insight into this, I know. But just to give the rundown, I'll play a little bit of a report here, real quick, and then we'll get into it, and I'll read the rest of this. Let's see if I can find it here. Where did I put it? Here it is.
David Knight, FrankfurtWars.com. Now, we just uploaded a video that was a summary from what we saw being at the protest area and going with the crowd to get back the Bundy cattle. You can watch that video on YouTube. But I went back to the motel room. I turned on the television, and Fox News was doing a report. I just had to respond to the lies that came out of that report. Now, what the reporter on the scene did, and this is a reporter that was, by the way, was not there. He was not, I did not see him there. If he was there, he was at a distance. He was not down in the trenches where we didn't have any coverage. There was a Fox cameraman who was up front, very bravely up front. This reporter was not there that I saw. What this reporter did was he just parroted back the BLM press release. And this is what they said. They said that they gave back the cattle because they were afraid for the public's safety. That's a lie. They were trembling in fear for their safety. The public was not being threatened by anyone but the BLM. It was the BLM that was hiding behind their cars with their guns trained on us, running through the broadcast PA system, leave the area, we have a court order, we will shoot. We were threatened by the BLM. We were not threatening. It wasn't some third party that was threatening us. We were threatened by them. They released the cattle because they were afraid of the people. They should be afraid. We're going to take our freedoms back. David Knight, Infowars.com.
All right. What do you think of that report, Mike?
Well, I can tell you this right now. I've been doing some extensive reading on this from, both sides, trying to, form a perspective. But I can tell you something right now. They had brought, I believe the reason what happened was, and you're probably right, they're going to come back, was for the simple fact is they brought gear in, heavy tactical gear, military grade, to actually have all the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, officials or, tyrants dress up in and confront the protesters. Well, what had happened was you seen about 1/3 of them dress up in their combat gear, as I call it, and sit to the next of the vehicle, while the 2/3 were standing in the back of the vehicles, arguing and talking, having heavy discussions. What I found out is the heavy discussions they were having, they did not want to fire or shoot these people or even have a confrontation with them. So, as we see here, or as I had seen, that you had actually desertion from going against the American people. And, it comes down to this. The government says that he owes money for grazing, fees, because supposedly his cattle's grazing on federal land, okay? Well, here's what it comes down to, people. The government took his land without his permission. The government taxed his land without his permission. And now the government wanted to take his cattle because he refused to pay to sell the cattle to get the money from the cattle. And, the people did not want to put up with that.
And so, they shouldn't. And
right.
And the militias came to their aid, and the alternative media prevailed. The mainstream media missed out on some Pulitzer prizes there, I think, because the White House told them, hey, if there's reports, and I don't want to lie, on air, but there's reports that the White House, was threatening seats to the White House if they aired this. So we didn't really hear anything on the mainstream media until after the fact, because they did, and there were reports that they shut down the cell towers, they shut down all communications. But this letter is very interesting, Mike, and I believe they will come back. But this time, and that's the big thing, you hear so often that people going into the military are being asked, will you fire on an American citizen? And if you say no, you're given a crap job or you're out of there. And they're purging the ranks and getting rid of the people that won't fire on American citizens. Why? Why are they doing it? So here's. Go ahead.
Look at the positive side of it. Okay, look at the positive side of it. Then what happens if they ever, and again, I'm all about peaceful, resolution, by getting the right people elected. But if it becomes a tyrannical state, then we know who the enemy of liberty is, and we know who are the friends of liberty. Just easier to tell.
I guess in a way you're correct, but I would rather have friends on the inside when it all goes down.
You will, but they won't be open about it.
Right. So here's this letter. It says, to put it bluntly, the people are being hoodwinked into believing that the situation has been resolved. It is not. It is a strategic de-escalation to fool the public. This source stated that the retreat of the BLM agents and the release of the cattle was actually crafted as a potential plan based on the following. Number one, a military assessment of satellite and drone surveillance imagery of the Patriot resistance. Drones under the control of the U.S. military were in use, taking real-time photographic images of not just the activity at the ranch, but identifying protesters, any arms, any supplies they might be carrying. Mission accomplished. Number two, real-time communication intercepts between patriots on-site and their off-site support. Number three, active monitoring of Internet traffic regarding the coverage of events at the ranch. Number four, the monitoring of real-time video from the scene. This source stated that a response by the Patriot movement was anticipated. But although it exceeded their expectations, this was a real operation. They also ran this as a test case for future government operations once they saw the response. They were also actively managing the media, in some cases threatening to cut off the White House access to anyone covering the event. Despite this, the coverage by the alternative media began to create a public relations problem that was not easily managed. So, what do you think, Mike?
Well, I can tell you this right now. I don't know what it's called, but Russia came out maybe 6 months ago regarding our space weapons. One of the space weapons we have is an EMP, okay? And it shoots in the form of a laser. Now, here's my thinking about it. If this gentleman was to be correct, of course, we all know that the government listens to us, whether it be military or intelligence, whatever it may be. We all know the NSA is listening. It's stored somewhere.
Oh,
so
you and I even know they listen to this show.
Well, we can get over that road, the road hurdle right there. What I can tell you is, if the government wanted to have a total, media blackout, they could have fired their pulse weapon from space, knocked out every, after they've, retreated their troops, or BLM people, whatever they're called, and they could have shot the space weapon down, disabled every cell phone, every electronic device, make it dead, not work, and then they could swoop in and nobody will ever know what happened. I think what happened is the governor of the state grew some kahoonies and started yelling and screaming about what was going on. Because you got to remember something: Las Vegas and Nevada, they're a very conservative but liberal state. Do you know what I mean by that?
You mean they're Steve LaTourette Republicans?
No, what they are, they're more of a Mike Republican. Okay, where I don't take my stuff. I've worked hard for it, and I'll shoot you if you try to steal my stuff. Okay? And they don't care about Las Vegas or the social issues or the cat ranch down the hill. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're very, gun rights. Heck, in Nevada, the desert, you can carry an AK-47 fully loaded if you want it. It just depends on what you do with the thing, and so forth. So on one hand, they're very conservative. On the social issues, they're very liberal. So the governor started screaming. Even the government came on the record to say the feds are overstepping. So did, I believe, a senator did too. And I think the pressure was put on them to retreat. And this is why I think they did retreat. One of the two reasons, because the senator and the governor were calling for a hearing, and into Mr. Reed's China connection. That's why they retreated, one of the big reasons. Another big reason, nobody in their right mind, except a few idiots and morons that did gear up, would shoot American people. Majority of them had dissent. They were sitting there, no way, no how. It's gone on far enough. We're not gearing up to kill Americans. Plain and simple. As I told you, the Army, if they were ever called to kill Americans, you might have 20% that'll do it, but the 80% will say, forget you, screw you. I got family at home. Is the Army doing the family? It's called conscience. So,
according to sources, Harry Reid, Senator Harry Reid, is behind this. He's the majority leader in the Senate, and that he was bringing a solar farm, a Chinese solar farm there. What have you seen about that?
Well, it is true. It is true. His son is actually the attorney in Las Vegas that's trying to push this deal through. Yeah. So here's my point about it. Sorry, Mr. Harry Reid, your deal's done. The public knows what's up, and they're not going to tolerate it now. So I guess you might want to tell your son to go get an honest job instead of trying to steal people's land and make commission off of it. Get an honest job like the rest of us. So.
Well, we know Arizona came to their aid. This was Saturday morning, I believe this was, approximately 11 a.m. The Arizona legislature passed a resolution of support for the Bundy family and against the heavy-handed tactics of the U.S. government, especially the BLM, in the seizure of grazing land used by the Bundys since the late 1880s in Clark County, Nevada. The resolution is signed by members of the Arizona House of Representatives standing against any and all violations of state sovereignty and violation of U.S. Constitution by the federal government. This resolution is to be hand-carried this weekend and delivered to members of the Nevada State Legislature in support of their right to protect state and local sovereignty. So we have a lot of the western states coming together in support of the people. And I think that had a big thing to do with what shut this down. But what everybody was wondering, Mike, was where was the sheriff?
You know where the sheriff was?
Where was the sheriff? Under his desk?
No, he was getting an award from Harry Reid.
Oh, there you go, yeah. Yeah, there's a nice picture of him getting an award from Harry Reid. Sheriff of the Year, was it?
Yep, they should vote him out. I don't see why a senator or even a Congress give a sheriff. I mean, that to me is a conflict of interest. Give a sheriff an award? Are you kidding me? What business is the federal government giving the sheriff an award? I could see the Sheriff's Association giving an award, but the Senate and the Congress? Come on. Stinks.
Well, what are they trying to do? They're getting rid of sheriffs all over. You've got governors arresting sheriffs all over, which they cannot do for following the Constitution. Then you've got all these attorneys who went to the same school who don't even know the Constitution anymore because they've been taught the opposite of what it says in some cases.
Right.
And so they don't know what to do. And so you got all these people in power who don't know what to do. They don't even know the Constitution. I remember the one judge not too long ago cited the Declaration of Independence rather than the Constitution.
Right.
And what the hell is going on with libertarians lately? Is it COINTELPRO? Because I see libertarians saying, well, he should pay the taxes. He needs to pay the taxes. It's not the government's fault. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Aren't you libertarian?
Right.
It's got to be COINTELPRO. What else could it be? And these are libertarians who embedded themselves in the Ron Paul movement, people who were part of the Campaign for Liberty. They embedded themselves. They got in there. They made friends with all of the old Ron Paul people. This is what actually started this whole movement. And now they're saying, well, he should have paid his taxes and things. It doesn't make any sense to me, Mike.
I don't know. Maybe they're just disenfranchised.
I think they're shills. That's what I think.
I don't know. You know what I find funny? This is the same thing with like a lot of our candidates, that they run and say, oh, I'm a patriot, I'm this and that, and I'm a conservative constitutionalist. But once they get to Washington, guess what? Oh, well, we have to compromise, and we have to give up our freedoms at some times. And it's like, hold on one second. Nice, pony show, gentlemen. You know what I'm saying? So I won't believe it till I see it.
Well, in case some of you people out there, listen, they're trying to get rid of the sheriffs everywhere. Your sheriff is elected for a reason. He's elected by you, the people. He is there to protect you, the people. He doesn't answer to the governor. He doesn't answer to anyone in the state or the federal government. He answers to you, the people. And the only person that can arrest your sheriff is who, Mike? What have you learned from me? The county coroner. Exactly right. And why is that? Well, because back then, the county coroner was well educated, right?
Right.
That is why that is also an elected position. Right, Mike?
Right.
You can't get rid of the coroner. You can't get rid of the sheriff. It's a balance. You see movements all over the United States, in certain states, to get rid of the sheriffs or the coroners. It happened here in Ohio. They wanted to get rid of all the coroners. You can't do it. Now I'm going to play a little excerpt from an interview with Sheriff DeMaio of Nevada when the BLM came in to do the same thing they did at the Bundy Ranch. This is what should have happened in this case. So I'm going to play this for you, ladies and gentlemen. Listen closely. Now we got a caller on the line. We're going to get to the caller after this. This is Sheriff DeMaio.
Hi, my name is Tony DeMaio, and I'm Sheriff of Nye County. I'm the elected constitutional office holder for Nye County Sheriff's Office. I came to Nevada after retirement from New Jersey, Jersey Police Department. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, as you can tell. I'm not from these parts. Came out here to retire. I got involved again in law enforcement, serving as a deputy. Subsequently, I ran for sheriff, and I was elected sheriff in 2002 and began serving my term as sheriff since 2003. I'm right now in my second term. One of the responsibilities we have as constitutional office holders is ensuring that our people, our deputies, and those that are within Nye County, especially those in law enforcement, observe the Constitution, because that is the law of the land. We also have a state constitution as well, which we're also responsible for upholding. One of the great responsibilities that we have is protection of our constituency, and sometimes that involves being the buffer and intermediary with the federal government. In Pahrump Valley, where we are right now, we deal with typical law enforcement issues, that being calls to service involving disputes, calls to service involving property theft, those involving crimes against the people. Up in northern Nye County, we deal with other issues that are different than typical law enforcement, which is I'm used to dealing with in a city. That would be dealing with BLM, the U.S. Forestry Service, ranching issues, water right issues. We still have, sometimes we have cattle rustling. The area which we have some of the issues and some of the conflicts with our federal authorities would be a Pine Creek Ranch. Wayne Hage bought his ranch quite some time ago, and that was a lifelong dream. He went to college. He started working a ranch. He actually dropped out of school to work a ranch, and he loved it so much that he decided that his lifelong dream was to own a ranch. Him and his wife Jean and the children bought what is known as Pine Creek Ranch, which is a patented land of 7,000 acres, but it's an allotment of 700,000 acres. And to give you an idea how big that is, that's 1,100 square miles, about 1,100 square miles of allotments that he has to run 2,000 head of cattle. And in order to operate any type of business, you need water rights. You need some ability to actually get your water. If you're not connected to a public utilities, which Pahrump is, majority of the water that's given to or taken from residences is from underground. Wayne Hage was kind of surprised that the U.S. Forestry Service was interested in his water rights, and he contacted the state water authority, and which actually controls the water rights. They know where all the water rights are, who owns them. It's like owning land, so to speak. And he was informed that the federal government, U.S. Forestry Service, was actually in the process of actually filing for his water rights. And in order for Wayne Hage to conduct his cattle business, he needs water rights. If you don't have water rights, you can't conduct your cattle business, and if you don't have a cattle business, you can't utilize your water rights. So this is what Wayne Hage believed was a way for the federal government to shut down his ranching operation. The issues, as I've seen in Nevada, and especially in Nye County, especially dealing with Wayne Hage, was that these are water issues. They actually have to deal with water right issues. And in Nevada, if you can't show any beneficial use for your water rights, you actually lose them. After 5 years, if you can't show that you actually need those water rights and that you actually lose them, and they revert to the state, and then the state decides who's going to get those water rights. Wayne Hage was going back and forth with the federal government as far as his water rights until 1991, when he was surrounded by the U.S. federal government with agents fully armed, wearing flak vests, and some perched on high ground areas, and contacted Wayne Hage and told him that they were in the process of seizing his cattle. And at that time, cattle was removed from the Pine Creek Ranch, and Wayne Hage at that time was filing against the federal government. Actually started a case against the federal government, which he filed in the U.S. Claims Court. And since 1991, he's had these conflicts with the BLM and conflicts with the U.S. Forestry Service, up until even to this day. We're in 2009. Sadly, in 2006, Wayne Hage succumbed to natural causes and he died. Shortly after his death, though, I got a phone call from a representative, the special agent in charge of the Nevada office for the U.S. Forestry Service. And at that time, the SAC informed me that she has come to a resolution how we can manage and take care of Wayne Hage's problems with the cattle and the seizure and the federal managed lands, which it's public lands. It's not really, they're not owned by the federal government. They're actually public lands, which are owned by the people. The federal government under the BLM, which is the Bureau of Land Management, which was formed in 1946. From the combination of the Grazing Office and the General Land Office, formed this management office. The federal government doesn't own the lands; are actually within the state of Nevada. The state of Nevada, as I understand, hasn't given those lands to the federal government. They're within the state of Nevada, and I believe the state of Nevada actually has sovereignty in those lands. That's my belief, and what's I believe as far as the states' rights issues in the 10th Amendment. So when my conversation with Ms. Matthews, the SAC, where I was informed that she was in the process of actually getting ready to do a cattle seizure or attempt to do a cattle seizure on behalf of the U.S. Forestry Service, I asked her to, I told her, I said, listen, Wayne Hage isn't cold in the ground yet. He died a little more than a month ago. And this meeting happened in the middle of July. And I asked her why she was in the process of actually, considering this option, and especially when I told her that the cases in the U.S. Claims Court and the judges overseeing this, and I believe that the federal government should actually hold off any type of a cattle seizure, any kind of a seizure at all, until this case is settled in a proper venue, which is the court. And at that time, she said that she had some great ideas and that she would be willing to meet with me. I had a meeting with her a couple weeks later in the office here in Pahrump, Nevada, and attending that meeting was the area commander of this Southern Area Command, Captain Bill Beck, which at that time we explained to her what the Constitution stood for and why we weren't going to allow them to do a cattle seizure without intervention from the county sheriff's office. I informed her that we have a responsibility to protect the constitutional rights of our citizens. I expect my deputies to protect the constitutional rights of our citizens, and I expect that the federal government also, which is responsible for the Constitution, falling under the law of the land, should also respect the Constitution as well. And during the conversation, I asked Ms. Matthews, who did she work for? And she said, she works for the U.S. Forestry Service. I said, no, who's the authority that you derive your authority from? And at that time, she said, the U.S. Congress. And then I informed her that that's not the right answer, that in law enforcement and in government, we govern by the consent of the people that we govern. My badge doesn't give me authority to govern as a sheriff. I get the authority to govern by the people who put me in office. We, in every policing agency, we understand that the power that we have, authority that we have, emanates from the people who we serve. It doesn't come from us. It doesn't come from the government. It comes from the people we serve. Our forefathers were very clear in plain language to state that in our Declaration of Independence and plus our Constitution, and laying out the amendments to the Bill of Rights that follows the Constitution and in the Articles of the Constitution. That I informed Ms. Daniel that there be no unlawful incursions onto Pine Creek Ranch, and that if she had any issues with the landowner and the person responsible for the allotments, Mr. Wayne Hage, that she can contact the Hage estate now. She can contact me and be more than happy to assist. The meeting was ended.
All right. That was very powerful right there. And if you watch the video, the sheriff goes on to say that the BLM was very upset at that point and said, well, we're just bringing a SWAT team, blah, blah, blah. And the sheriff said, well, that's fine. I have a SWAT team too. And that's what a sheriff has to do. The sheriff has to have some cojones, ladies and gentlemen. If you're running for the sheriff's position, you better have some cojones when it comes to protecting the people. That's your job. Your job is not to succumb to the federal government. Your job is not to succumb to the state government even, if you're within your constitutional rights. So, let's get to the guests. Caller, you're on the air.
There are a whole lot of things to comment on. First of all, the BLM is another example of a federal agency which did not exist before 1900 and shouldn't exist anymore. Basically, they're a gang of cattle rustlers. And by the way, this is David Macko, and I'm still the Libertarian candidate for Congress in the 14th District. And one of the charges against Barack Obama now should be head of a gang of cattle rustlers.
Right.
Am I exaggerating? I don't think so. Regarding the whole issue of sheriffs, one of the worst changes to the county government in Cuyahoga County a few years ago is that we no longer have an elected sheriff. Neither does Summit County, and this is very bad, as you mentioned in your commentaries. Alex Jones seems to think that the resistance yesterday may be a turning point. He seems to be very optimistic that the American people might finally be waking up and that these folks did stand up against the threat to their lives. They were very brave. We need to see more of that. And as for sheriffs needing to have a no-compromise position, that's true with any candidates.
Well, Dave, I want to get your take on this. Do you think they are poking and prodding to see where the weaknesses are of the American people in an effort to gain intelligence for a future strike?
Well, of course, they're always doing that. The other interesting factor is the connection to that rotten, corrupt enemy of liberty and the human race, Senator Harry Reid of Nevada. He was, again, Alex Jones broke this story to the whole world, that he was the person involved with the Red Chinese in setting up a large area of Nevada which is going to be used for some solar power scandal, some solar power corruption, like Solyndra.
Right, and isn't it funny that the Chinese told Obama, well, we're not very happy with what you're doing, or we're not happy with what's going on there. Who in the hell are the Chinese to tell us what we can and can't do, Dave?
Yeah, it's our job to tell Obama we're fed up with him, not theirs.
I don't understand. These politicians, they need money so bad. They have a thirst for money. They'll take it from anyone. And when their handlers don't like the way they're doing something or don't like the outcome, for instance, the free people standing up, then they express their anger at our politicians. Of course, our politicians are weak in the knees when it comes to their handlers, and they just give in. But it's not going to happen, Dave.
Well, again, I think the American people are finally waking up. It's slower than we thought, and certainly took a lot longer than we'd all hoped. But again, the three people who have done most to wake the American people up are Ron Paul, Alex Jones, and Barack Hussein Obama. I've said that before, and I will continue to say it until someone can prove I'm in error.
Right, but let's say we do get somebody else in there for president. If people think that just getting Barack Obama out of the White House is going to solve the problem, then they don't understand what the problem is.
Oh,
right?
No. Oh, speaking of which, this brings us up to the subject of the Libertarian Party and libertarians. It caught my ear when you were mentioning some libertarians who were actually criticizing the patriot Mr. Bundy. Who are these people? Do you recall any names from the source where you saw this?
I can give you the names off air. I don't like to say names on air, but
okay.
They've been a part of the Patriot movement for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Way back since 2007 when this all started.
Yeah, the Tea Parties and the Ron Paul movement. Mm-hmm.
Right. They're embedded in these movements. They have tons of thousands of friends on Facebook and other places, and they're very involved. And for them to come out and say that, it was just Blew me away.
Well, look at Judas Iscariot and Benedict Arnold. Although I hate to compare Benedict Arnold to our current leaders and misleaders. That's an insult to Benedict Arnold. If you studied the history of the Revolutionary War, Benedict Arnold shed blood for our country twice at Montreal, Quebec, and at Saratoga, whereas these traitors have never shed blood for the United States. So, but it's the dark side of human nature.
Now, I'm going to take one of our commercial breaks, and I'm not certain what happened to our co-host. He just kind of dropped off. I don't know if he can get back in or not. We had some issues when I played the sheriff there, but we're going to go to our commercial break, and we'll be back right after that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Mr. Dave Macko, running for Congress here in the 14th District as a Libertarian. Dave, what other news do you have for us this week? What else is going on, or what other insight can you give us into this whole Bundy situation?
Well, Mr. Bundy is a very courageous man. Another point that the news brought out, that he is the last of the 53 ranchers in that area. The feds have succeeded in driving all of the rest of them off the land. And then you wonder why the cost of beef, including even hamburger, is so high now.
Right. Well, I wanted to play the original bad boy of sheriffs, and I wanted to play a little clip from Sheriff Mack. This is just a part one of a huge allotment of videos from Sheriff Mack. There's a lot you can learn about your sheriff, and it will give you some questions that you might ask the next sheriff, the next guy running for sheriff. You want to get in there. I know the current sheriff we have right here in Lake County. You know, I asked him flat out some questions, and a lot of people in the crowd did not like the answers he gave to those questions, Mr. Macko.
Well, you might make a good candidate for sheriff one of these years.
Yeah, but the problem with that is people have been conditioned to think that you actually need experience in law enforcement in order to do that. Why don't you tell our audience what kind of experience you need to be a sheriff?
Well, you need to be honest, and you need to be uncompromising, and you need to understand the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Ohio, and you need to understand that the sheriff, like all federal, state, and local offices, is a servant of the people, that you're there to interpose yourself between the people and especially the Fed Gov, and of course the state government too. If you believe in liberty, that's what you're supposed to be doing. If you support what's going on now, the whole Klan movement to enslave us, then of course you'd be a puppet for the establishment, and we'd want to kick you out.
Right. Now, that's the thing, Dave. Anybody can run for an elected position, correct?
Well, it's judges. You need to have a legal degree, I believe.
Except for the Supreme
judges.
Court, right?
Except for the Supreme Court, they can put any yo-yo on there, as they've done many times, as you know.
Right. There's 4 of them right now, isn't there?
At least. Sometimes more.
Right.
Sometimes it goes to 5. Well,
but depending on how much they get paid, right? No, I can't.
Or how much they're blackmailed.
Yeah,
or how much they're blackmailed. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to play Sheriff Mack, and then we're going to bring Mike back on. But remember, this is only one part. If you want to, it's a real learning experience. This is the man who won against the Clinton administration, against the Brady bill. And he's going to explain a little bit about the county sheriff position. But if you really want to get more, you have to go and see it. So here it is.
My name is Richard Mack, and I'm the former sheriff of Graham County, Arizona. The county sheriff is the only elected law enforcement officer in the United States, and certainly in his county. So he's the only official that reports directly to the power source. In other words, he's not a bureaucrat. He wasn't appointed by some other body. He reports directly to we, the people. And so he is sovereign in that regard because he reports directly to the other sovereigns. And that's why the sheriff is the ultimate authority. He's not a bureaucrat from Washington, D.C. The President of the United States cannot tell your sheriff what to do. And so certainly none of the other auxiliary departments underneath the President can tell the sheriff what to do, and that includes the IRS, the EPA, OSHA, FBI, DEA. Any of those agencies cannot tell the sheriff what to do. But when they're in his sovereign jurisdiction, he can tell them what to do. The question is, will he? It's really alarming how many peace officers, policemen, law enforcement officers, sheriffs, chiefs of police, who have actually taken an oath of office to uphold and defend, protect and preserve the United States Constitution. And then when you present them with that thought or idea that that's exactly what they should be doing, they claim that it isn't their job to uphold and defend the Constitution, that which they've already sworn an oath to do. And so that's what really I find very disturbing. But I think it's the evolution that has taken place in our country today, and also it's a result or a consequence or a branch of what's wrong with America. America is off track. We have replaced our Constitution, which was the bulwark of our freedom in this country, with political agendas, political selfishness, and ultimately political correctness has replaced our Constitution. And so is it any wonder that we're so far off track? And my message is law enforcement owns part of that problem, and we need to correct it. No, the governor and the sheriff are pretty much equal. The governor is the sovereign leader over the state. The sheriff would probably supersede the governor within his county because he is the ultimate protector of the people within his jurisdiction. He can't let anybody violate the Constitution in his county. He cannot allow anyone to violate the rights of the people within his jurisdiction. It doesn't matter if it's the governor, the president, the IRS, FBI. He is in charge of protecting the constitutional freedoms of his jurisdiction. The governor, oversees the state, and she is, or he, very powerful, and they are equal in some ways and have the same responsibility to the people who elect them, and that is to uphold and defend their Constitution. I was probably the first sheriff in the United States to sue the federal government for doing that very thing, for promulgating a bill or law or statute that directly commandeers the sheriff for federal bidding. As I look back, I'm really grateful that we won a case at the United States Supreme Court, and I still have yet to see if, throughout American history, that there's been another case won at the Supreme Court by a sheriff, by a sitting sheriff. Sheriff Prince and I ended up taking this case all the way to the Supreme Court. We won on this very issue of state sovereignty, local autonomy, and the power of the county. And so when or any other legislative body passes a law, a supposed law, that forces the sheriff to violate his oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution, what does he do? And Judge Roll, in my case, actually said that Sheriff Mack is thus forced to choose between keeping his oath or obeying the act. And I think he nailed it right on the head there. That's the key question. What does all of law enforcement and what do all the sheriffs across the country do when a statute forces them to violate their constitutional oath? Well, I think it's easy. you keep your word to your oath. That's the ultimate law. The supreme law of the land is the Constitution. Nothing supersedes the Constitution. So let's put it back in its proper place. And I would say there was a sheriff from Montana that did not join the lawsuit, who I agree with. He did it the right way. He just said no. He said, we're not doing the Brady Bill in this county. And that was, I believe, Sheriff Nixon. And as I look back, I wish that that's what we had done. After looking back at my lawsuit and the subsequent victory in the U.S. Supreme Court, that I wish the sheriffs in Arizona had simply all signed a letter unitedly and sent it back to Washington, D.C., to the White House, and CC it over to the Congress and the Justice Department, letting them know we're not doing the Brady Bill in Arizona, and thank you very much for your efforts, but it won't be applied here. Yeah, that was a very powerful case, disavowed by the judge in the case, by the way, but it was a requirement of the settlement in the case that Sheriff Mattis devise a way to make sure that the federal government couldn't come in and do what they did to the Castaneda family, trying to arrest them. Well, they did arrest them at 1 o'clock in the morning for being illegal immigrants. And, of course, nobody's trying to do that now when we have them all over the place, but the thing of it was, the Castanedas required that as part of their settlement. And Dave Mattis actually came up with the idea, and they were obeying it. The federal government was obeying it. And other counties in Wyoming also practiced the same policy. It wasn't a law, but it was a policy as established through a court order, or a court settlement, I should say. I don't believe they're doing it too much now. And so we've got a lot of work to do. Well, first thing I would love to see it be the county commissioners. The county commissioners should be supporting their sheriff with proper legislation or resolutions to have him enforce the Constitution. So if they pass a law saying federal government, let's say they have this H.R. 45 that Barack Obama's trying to shove down our throats right now, to have a national registry for firearms and firearm owners in this country, and to have a national licensure granted from Washington, D.C. to keep and bear arms, which is already guaranteed in the Second Amendment. Let's say that is really going to be pushed, and the federal government is going to come out and perhaps confiscate weapons and or ammunition. So what does the local authority do? Well, the county commission passes a resolution saying that there will be no more federal gun control in this county, and the sheriff enforces it. And so when the feds come in, the sheriff stands. He shouldn't need that resolution, but it would be nice to have it, because the Second Amendment is there, and he's already sworn, we're back to that again, he's already sworn an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, of which the Second Amendment is a part, is a key integral part of the freedom as established by our founders. And why was the Second Amendment put there in the first place? Well, that's what we need to all understand. The intent of the Founding Fathers on the Second Amendment was so that the people of this country would have the final say in controlling their government. And the ultimate power of the Second Amendment is that the people remain in charge to be able to fight off abusive government. That's why the Second Amendment's there. So yeah, and the other one that really needs to back the sheriff in what's going on is the county attorney. It's not essential to have those others. The sheriff can do it on his own. He doesn't need to ask permission of anybody in the county or across the country. He doesn't need to ask the barber down on Main Street or anyone else how he's going to keep his oath of office. He's bound by his word, and he's also bound by the Constitution.
All right, Dave.
Well, obviously, Sheriff Mack is absolutely correct, and one of the most courageous people in the United States. we had 3,000 other county sheriffs like him, the problem would be solved tomorrow morning.
Mike.
Well, he is correct. The sheriff basically holds, the county, and if whatever happens in the county, the sheriff is responsible to protect, such as, this sheriff did with the federal laws. He said, they won't be enforced in this county, and he or she has those rights. I think the problem is a lot of sheriffs are afraid to, really enforce the law. Reason being is because maybe it's not the popular thing to do, or maybe they just fear they'll lose party support.
Now, in your opinion, Mike, if that sheriff is afraid to do his job, should somebody else be doing his job for him?
Anybody who doesn't do their job needs to have someone else come in and do the job, not just the sheriff. I mean, it's if you don't vote, if you don't vote in the auspices of the Constitution, you should lose your job. Have somebody else get elected and take your place. So
Dave,
yes,
Dave, what do you think?
Well, I agree that at all levels we need people who will obey the Constitution of the United States, and obey the Constitution of their states, and understand that they are servants of the people, and that the purpose of government is to protect the lives, liberty, and property of the people. Anything else is a perversion, and we're coming to the point where the Declaration of Independence mentioned if governments fail to do that, then it's the right of the people to alter or abolish them.
Right.
I prefer to do that. By elections. I'm running for Congress. I'm not running to be a militia leader. As you know, my age probably would preclude anything like that. But we're at that point. We're at that point now.
But you're still feisty at your age, Dave, which is what we like.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Robert. I do my best, even on a Sunday evening. And if you start hearing a little bit of snoring, first mute me and then wake me up.
Hey, Dave, I have that exact. It's a deal. You got it. But here's I want to read.
That's no reflection on the program. That's a reflection on my age and what I've been doing over the weekend.
Absolutely, Dave.
Okay.
I want to read the excerpt you were talking about from the Declaration of Independence, and here's the quote: "Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security."
Everything Thomas Jefferson said about King George applies 10 times as much to Barack Hussein Obama.
Right.
And Jefferson said we needed a revolution every 20 years. Now, I was taught mathematics before Common Core. It seems to me like we're about 200 years behind.
And all we really need, Dave, is for people to pay attention. Look at voting records. Are these people, go to meetings, go to council meetings, go to commissioner meetings, they have them at the worst times, but within these groups that we have, Dave, why couldn't these groups then appoint people that have the time to go there and record every single thing that happens and then play it at their meeting each week when they meet, and then go out and tell the public and inform the public?
That's a great idea.
And don't you think then we could be a little more informed?
Of course.
So I hope anybody listening would take that idea and do it. Of course I can. I work 12 to 14 hours a day, Dave. I would happily run for city council. I'm just not going to be able to be there for the people. I won't be able to do my job, and so I don't run.
Understood.
But I would be happy to mentor anyone thinking of running for city council, committeemen, Congress, commissioner, you name it. I will be there to mentor you. I will tell you what you can and can't do. And Mike, you had something you wanted to talk about, didn't you? We want to talk about the city charter, right?
Right, definitely, right.
All right, Dave, we want your take on this after Mike's done telling us what's going on here.
What city is he discussing?
Say again?
Mentor on the Lake.
Okay.
Mike, state your position and what exactly is going on there.
Well, I am a part of what's called the City Charter Review Commission, a member. And what we do at the City Charter Review Commission, we look at the city charter, and we are appointed and voted in both by the mayor and by the city council. And what we do is we basically look at the current city charter, and you should do it every 10 years, just to keep it updated or make any needed changes. But here's the thing about it: City Charter Review Commission doesn't actually make changes within the government. What we do in the City Charter Review Commission is we put something on the ballot to be voted on for the people, by the people. The citizens in the municipality, city, town, village, etc. So that's what we basically do. It's very important because it's like the spinal cord of the city, basically. And so forth. So it's an honor to serve the people of Men in the Lake by doing this. I got some phone calls over the weekend, some very nasty phone calls from people, because they know I'm on the City Charter Review Commission, and these phone calls were such as the fact that we should be investigated because we're profiting and being corrupt and etc. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, hold on one second, where is this coming from? I didn't even have a clue. Supposedly, I guess something went down on Friday to where one of the councilmen had written the News Herald about what the meeting was about, at the last meeting we had. So what basically happened, I read somebody had actually sent it to me after apologizing for basically, chastising me. And I read it, and, I just didn't understand how the letter could be written like that when, in fact, the City Charter Review... Go ahead.
Mike, what exactly happened at the meeting?
Well, here's what happened, okay? In our town, the administration and council, they go back and forth regarding appropriations and finances, et cetera, okay? And what had happened was it was brought up to by the commission president, because you elect the chair. It was brought up to open up discussion regarding a levy that the Charter Review Commission might want to have put on the ballot for the people to vote for. My stance on it was this: I support a levy in order to support fire and police, and lock it in so only fire and police get, the money from this levy. And, I supported the motion, not a motion, but I supported it with my opinion that it be put on the ballot and let people decide. And the reason being is they're now considering, getting rid of 911 in our city, getting rid of the fire department, to a certain extent, EMS, speaking frankly. And, my whole consideration was this: forget the politics and the administration going back and forth. Let's take care of the people in uniform. Let's sidetrack all this stuff going on at City Hall and let the people decide. Let the people decide, well, hey, yeah, I want to pay a few, or extra dollars or continue the levy to keep our, safety forces, emergency services here in Minnesota Lake with a faster response time. Or let the people decide, no, we don't want to vote, for more money. We'd rather have men or police and fire take care of us.
Okay, now
up to the people. Go ahead.
Now, Mike, I guess I'm a little confused because
okay.
I hear you say that you want to put a levy up for a vote for police and fire. Now,
it's not.
Is there or is there not an amount of money that is allocated for police and fire, and then it says what, a general fund also in that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
My whole thinking was specifically lock it into fire and police only. Okay. Period.
Now, Dave, do you agree with that?
Of course, if the people are being told that the money they're voting for is to be used for one purpose, then it's obviously the government is committing fraud if they don't use it for that purpose. In many ways, being involved with the city government is much more complicated than the state or federal. When you're running for Congress, it's mainly a situation of what we should stop doing, where we should get out, and how we can lower taxes. At the state level, it's pretty much that and fighting the Fed gov. At the city level, there are things you actually should be doing. Roads for the time being until we come up with a way to privatize them, and probably police and fire, and unless you're able to come to a system where you hire private police departments and private fire departments, but that's a long way off. And of course, courts needs to be public. That can never be privatized.
Well, I don't know if we want to have another Harlan, Montana incident again, or a Hardin, Montana. For those of you that don't know what I'm looking at, or what I'm talking about, just look it up.
Yeah, the Montana Freeman. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about Hardin, Montana.
Hardin, Montana. Refresh my memory.
This is where a criminal who's wanted in like 5 states, who had a private army for hire, went into Hardin, Montana to take over the prison, and they slapped police stickers on the Mercedes-Benzes and drove them around town handing out tickets and things like that. That was a privatized police department.
I would think the National Guard should take care of that.
You would
Montana,
think.
You would think the Montana National Guard
But the city actually brought these criminals in there. That's what I'm saying. The city can make mistakes. People aren't always. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, just look it up. Hardin, Montana. Hardin. This was an incident that happened a few years ago. But, Mike, I guess what you're saying is there's already money allocated for police and fire, but it also includes the general fund.
Right.
So basically what you want to do is you want to put it on the ballot for a vote again, but this time excluding the general fund.
Well, yeah, I want to, as a position on the City Charter Review, a member of the City Charter Review Commission, I want to take it away basically from being debated and politicized from the council and the administration, and I want to send it directly to the people of the city to vote on. Okay. No more politics with people in uniform.
But the people last year. Do you have your do you have the show on in the background, Mike?
No, I don't.
Okay. So the people last year voted the levy down, right?
Yes.
And the people last time didn't know that money was also allocated to the general fund, correct?
Well, that I do not know, Rob. That I don't know if they knew or not. What I do know is this. It's come last year when they pushed the levy through, our EMS wasn't looked at to being cut to be subcontract out of Mentor, Ohio, city of Mentor, okay? Our 911 dispatch wasn't, looking to be cut and subcontract to the city of Mentor. So now you have a new, different ball game that we might just lose emergency services. And with this new threat or new dilemma, whatever you want to call it, I think the people should have a chance to hear it out and say, hey, you know what? If we're going to put a levy on specifically for police and fire, we're going to lock it in so it's only for police and fire, and EMS, of course, and we're going to try to push this levy through. Hope you vote for it because, we need the money to upgrade 911 systems. We need the money to, better pay our police. The police are underpaid where we live. So that's what the people need to be relayed to. I don't care what was spent where. The people in uniform, especially we see this at the federal level, okay? The people in uniform are always the last to get the scraps, whatever's left over. I mean, they spent $400 million to see how a frog defecates in Alaska, but they can't give it to the VA because of politics. I'm one person, of coming from uniform. I'm sick and tired of it.
Here's my advice. I'm not a citizen of Mentor-on-the-Lake per se.
Right.
But what I would vote for this wording here. If you say it was for police and fire only and not to the general fund, and then you add a stipulation that says if we do this, then the police department is no longer will no longer accept federal funding. I think I could vote for that. What do you think, Dave?
Absolutely, and of course, if I'm elected, and if I can convince 217 other members of the House of Representatives, there will be no federal funding for a whole lot of things. Well, there'll be practically no federal funding for anything, except the defense of the United States and a few courts.
What do you think about that, Mike?
Well, you know what? I concur. The only issue we have is, and I'm still trying to get a hold of the person, I'm not going to say names, is that it was stated that the City Charter Review Commission was trying to bypass the voters, which is incorrect. Okay, City Charter Review does not have that power. Myself being a constitutionalist on the record, not only on this show, though online, would never go for that. So, that's, again, it's politics being played with the issue again. And
Mike, I think the people are tired of politics as usual. I think they've had enough.
And you're right, and that's why, you know what? If council and administration cannot reach a functioning budget to take care of our people in uniform, then you know what? We'll do like the forefathers did. We'll send it to the people and let the people decide. That's my opinion on it.
Dave, any advice? Insight? Fair enough. If the people were not given a decision, a choice last year of making sure all the money went to what they actually wanted to improve, namely police and fire, then I could see another attempted levy this year, although generally you see it, especially with the education levies, they're defeated once and they put it on again and again. They'll put it on in February when old people can't get out. They'll put it on again in August when people are on vacation. My general idea would be if a levy fails, say there's a $5 million levy, and if it fails, and if they try to put it on within 2 years, then if it fails again, they should decrease the taxes by $5 million, double or nothing.
What do you think, Mike?
Well, that's you need to fund the police and fire. I mean, that's just critical right there. That's critical services. I agree to some point, that, hey, you can't overdo it, but then again, you can't underdo it either. I mean, nothing's perfect, but you have to get in a general window of being tolerant. Okay, they're not going to get, let's say, brand new cruisers every year. That's understood. Okay, things like that, an example. But here, the issue is when you're missing equipment and you don't have the proper equipment, you need to have it. I mean, it's just job critical.
But you don't need tanks, and you don't need armored personnel carriers, things of that nature. And that's what people are seeing popping up in their cities all over the place. I know Madison, where I come from, just we're given 2 Hummers.
Right.
What on earth do we need those for? What do we need tactical military equipment for?
Well,
somebody must know you live out there, Bob.
Right.
That's your federal grants. That's your federal grants. Hey,
You're
take
right.
it, or it's free. But when you take it and it's free, you got to listen to us. I can tell you, like in North Perry Village, they don't take any federal money for the police department. So the chief's in control there.
Good.
That's the only city in this county that I'm aware of that doesn't apply for federal grants and federal funding.
Right.
But the people are definitely waking up. The people have had enough. They're tired of politics as usual. I will say that it's important to have the proper EMS and fire. It's there for your protection should anything happen. God forbid anything happen to anybody. But wouldn't you want the best?
Right.
Well,
Dave?
one thing that might help is if the police only had to enforce laws that actually protected the life, liberty, and property of people, so that they wouldn't have to enforce laws, for example, against voluntary drug use by adults, for example, use of marijuana, so that they wouldn't have to go out as revenue agents on the roads giving people tickets for being 5 or 6 or 7 miles over the speed limit when they're not actually causing any injury.
You know what, Dave? I will say this for Men-on-a-Lake. I've lived in the area quite a long time, and I will say they don't make it a point to pull over citizens for every little traffic violation. For instance,
Right.
7 over the speed limit. They do not do that. So
you're not Lindale.
Right.
You're not
right.
Lindale. Yeah. Okay.
No, I'll tell you guys firsthand from something, okay? One of the best things about Men on the Lake is this. The police treat you like a human being. If you do by some chance get pulled over, very respectable, very professional, and very courteous. And 9 out of 10 times, if you do something wrong, like let's say you don't turn your signal on when you turn, which everybody should be doing. That's why they have a turn signal. They'll pull you over. They'll say, hey, you didn't use a signal. Make sure you use it from now on. And they'll let you ride after they run the background check on you. Okay, make sure you're not a runaway pedophile or something. But the thing, that's what I like. Now, what I can tell you is it's like small town here. It's very nice. And if you want to talk to a police officer, they'll talk to you in a professional level and in the personal level. And I'm not talking rudely either. I'm talking, hey, what do you think I should do? Somebody keeps breaking in my car. Well, if I were you, kind of deal. Whereas in some, communities, well, I can't advise you that, the law director says I can't give you legal advice. So Men in the Lake is a gem. It really is. I handed, these police officers. And what's sad is, a lot of them here, for instance, they don't like big government. They don't like, the feds, mixing in. It was asked of one of the officers, why don't you go get, rifles from the feds? Well, you know what? Not only is, a pain in the butt to do the paperwork, because you got to do the paperwork every other month, but then again, we don't like people dictating to us. hey, sounds like somebody I'd like to support.
That's a good attitude. They realize that they're servants of the people, not enforcers for the masters. The best way to get back to the concept of police as servants of the people is to end all federal aid and federal control. If you're going to sell federal tanks, sell them to everybody, not just the police.
Well,
right.
Mr.
Because federal funding and tactical equipment comes with stipulations and comes with orders to do certain things that and they're being more and more intrusive these days. For instance, taking blood, DNA. It would be a good thing to have a database because there's a lot of rapists running around out there that, if we just had a DNA sample and they were in the database, we could nail them. But on the other hand, you can't forcibly or coerce people into giving that up. That is their personal property. Unless he's been convicted of a crime. And I mean a real crime like murder or robbery or rape. Not using a particular substance the government doesn't like, or going 57 in a 55 zone or something like that. Right. So there are so many laws now. There are so many laws now at all levels that it's possible for the government to convict anyone of breaking some law. And this is the signature of a police state, that there are so many laws and so much complexity that no one can possibly know all the laws. You hear this phrase, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, unless the judge could recite every law, federal, state, and local, then he should be thrown out of office then if he says ignorance of the law is no excuse. The murder, yes. Robbery, yes. Rape, yes. Arson, yes. Fraud, yes. But there's tens of thousands of laws. Too many laws. Mike, I apologize for the interruption. Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
Well, I can tell you, for a fact that, it's okay. Like, what our guest said, that if you've been convicted of rape, found guilty by due process by a jury of your peers, then you need to give a sample. I mean, you've lost. When you've raped somebody or hurt a child, in a sexual manner, you've lost any rights you've had, of ever being, completely free again. That's what I believe in. I mean, once you give your DNA swab, you do your time, you get out. The government shouldn't mess with you anymore because you did your time. Though you have to notify your neighbors or the sheriff, I believe, that, hey, I'm a convicted sex offender, and I'm living at this address right now. That I do support. But, they go overboard, like, Mr. Macko said. Don't pay your bill, get thrown in jail. You're going to get DNA swabbed, fingerprinted, everything. That's ridiculous. And, that goes to show that debtor's jail is unconstitutional. But they're doing it anyway now.
Damn right it is. We got rid of debtor's prison a long time ago.
Well, it's back again now.
Well, you know what the problem is? It's these little fruitcakes. I call them fruitcakes. Some people call them liberals, progressives, communists, socialists. I call them fruitcakes. And I don't give a damn who's offended. I really don't. But I met one of them one time when I was getting visitation for my daughter. And and they're always, it's the typical type. A big, ugly woman who couldn't get laid by the dog if she tied a pork chop around her neck. And I mean, it just thinking about it makes me ill. She came up she was sitting directly across from me with Mom, and she told Mom right then and there, she didn't even know who I was. She says, "I'm on your side no matter what." This was supposed to be the guardian ad litem. And then when she found out who I was, she came over to me. She said, "What are you going to tell your daughter when you see her?" I said, "I'm going to tell her the truth." She said, "Well, you can't say that." And I said, "Who the hell are you?" Who the hell are you to tell me what I can and can't tell my own kid? Those are the people, ladies and gentlemen, that have taken over. And you wonder why the world leaders around the world are not afraid, because those people can tell us what to do because they have the backing of the police and the judges and everybody else. They can do these god-awful things to us because they have that power. They have the power of the gun. They have the power of the purse. But the world leaders are laughing at them, saying, "You don't have that kind of power over here, buddy. You're not gonna push us around like that." But these are the people in charge. What do you guys think, Mike?
Yeah, you're right. My father used to tell me, positions of power with no mind, or no common sense. And look what's happened today. No common sense whatsoever. This is why society's faltered. I don't care whether you get divorced or not, okay? That's your personal business. But you know what? Don't use your child as a weapon against the other parent, whether you're male or female, whatever it may be. Because I'm going to tell you something. You're not only ruining the country by doing this, okay? You're ruining a child's life. You're ruining that child to not understand how to be an adult. See, you lead by example. That's how I've been raised. That's how I've lived in my life, okay? And if God forbid, if I ever get divorced from my wife, okay, I'm going to be the friendliest guy to my wife just to show my daughter what a good character is and a good person is. I'm not going to play these, oh, I hate you, et cetera, that they do with child support and child court and family court. I told my wife, I said, hey, we ever get divorced, I'll take care of my daughter. That's our daughter. But you throw me in the system, for child support, I said, I'll still take care of her, but she's gonna learn what she did. And I'll still be nice and I'll still be respectable, but she's still gonna learn how bad you were to her daddy, and then she's gonna be the judge someday of who the bad parent is.
But it's funny you mentioned the judge, Mike, because this is the judge she was the magistrate, said, I side with Mom because I'm a single mother. I asked her to recuse herself several times, and the judge in the county, Ashtabula County, struck it down and struck it from the record. And that judge happens to be the same judge whose wife tried to poison him, and I can see why she tried it.
Let me tell you something. Whenever I have to go, if I ever have to go in front of a court, okay, whether it be divorce, whether it be criminal, whatever it may be, you know what it's called, Robert? A pen camera, okay? Put one in your shirt pocket, everything the judge does, or the lawyers or whatever. That way, most likely, maybe 50-50 chance, you're going to get screwed at the end. Guess what you can do? You can YouTube it and say, look how I got railroaded. Look what this judge said. I'm a single mother, so I'm going to side with the mother, sir. And guess what? Her butt's going to be on the hot seat. Get my drift?
Well, I pretty much told that judge where to go. I have no respect for a person sitting on a bench. I don't give a damn who they are. They're not following the Constitution, the rule of law, and they're not being fair, which is their job. But I don't have any respect for a person like that. Dave, what do you think?
Well, this bitch should be voted. Well, it's 10:49. It's okay. This female should be voted out of office. Also, generally, the Children's Protective Services are some of the most corrupt organizations in the country. They should be abolished. And most of the female judges on the divorce courts are totally slanted toward women. There's an excellent book that came out years ago called Back to Patriarchy, and I'm trying to remember the name of the author. He had several suggestions. One of them was to always give custody to the man. This would, unless the woman makes a whole lot more money. This would keep women from divorcing for frivolous reasons. And getting back to the sexual offender matter, some sexual offenders should be hanged. But my understanding is that people who urinate publicly can be charged and become sexual offenders, and it's totally unjust that they should have to report to anyone for the rest of their lives, or even even a few years.
Agreed.
I've never done that. My bladder is good enough, but, well, anyhow, even though it's 10:50, we don't need to get into these details.
Well, I do hail from the country, so I've had that happen a few times. You get tired of waiting in a crowded bar somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you, down in the South in Georgia, when I was in the military, I ate some bad Mexican food. And I'm not going to get into detail, but let me just tell you, I had to take a trip in the woods, okay? And here's the deal. The sheriff caught me. And I'm sitting there so red in the face, sick, sweating from this food poisoning. And I'll tell you, it's food poisoning. The sheriff was like, "What you doing, boy?" Just started laughing at me. And he was like, "Do you want me to call an ambulance? They're going to bring all those photographers with them." And I was like, "No, sir, I'm good. Thank you. Just let me be, please." And he says, "Listen," he goes, "I'll go down to the gas station and get you some paper." I'm like, "Thank you, sir." So the guy was really nice about it. But today do that, guess what's going to happen? 3 or 4 charges easily. Possible sex offender. I get my drift?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why when you say have the sex offenders report all the time, that doing things in the woods when you're very sick is a whole lot different from violating a little child or even a woman.
Okay, well, I'm sick after that. But I have something for you, Dave, that you can appreciate, and I'm going to play that real quick. Now, if you are easily offended, don't listen to the last part of this.
Uh-oh.
So what does the Second Amendment actually say? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's it. Not a lot of words, just very specific ones.
It means that the states have the right to have a well-regulated militia. And a 20-year-old kid carrying an assault weapon on the streets of downtown America has absolutely nothing to do with a well-regulated militia.
Well, no. Read the words. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Sure, you need an organized military force to defend your country, but the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the people, in contrast with the militia. It doesn't say the right of the militia to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It says the right of the people. Now, why the word people? Because the people who wrote this had just fought a war for 2 years against a tyrannical state militia. They knew the time might come when they'd have to do that again. So they made the possession of weapons a right that the militia could never take away. Now, gun control advocates say the phrasing is clumsy, and the comma separating the state from the people is just a pause to get your breath. Strange, they can't seem to point out any other places where those hack framers fucked up the wording.
All right, what do you think about that, Mr. Macko?
All rights are individual. You don't have to gather into a group for freedom of speech or to practice your religion, although most religions do involve gathering groups. So the right of the people to keep and bear arms is an individual right. At the time the Constitution was ratified, the militia consisted of all white men who were citizens. After the Civil War, it included black men, all white and black men. After women were given the right to vote nationally in 1920, it included everyone over the age of 16 capable of bearing arms. So when the enemy talks about a militia, they fail to recognize that everyone is a member of the militia and that the Second Amendment, like all of the rights which the Constitution prevents Congress from meddling with, are individual rights. If you have to belong to a group to have a right, you don't have a right.
That's right. Mike?
Right. No, I agree with Mr. Macko on that. Plain and simple, shall not be infringed upon. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? That means, you know what? Don't mess with my rights, period, okay? Now, again, if you own AK-47s, AR-15s, M4A1s, whatever, own it. That's your right, okay? As long as you secure them, any decent patriot would do. Secure them, keep them, out of the reach of, little children, okay? Then I agree with you right. Where I disagree, though, is carrying a fully loaded automatic in city town when it doesn't call for it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if DHS comes down with tanks killing citizens, hey, pull it out and run. You know, in the the center of town. But I don't see that happening, and you can't use an AK for self-defense. It'll go right through the person into somebody's car and kill them. That's where I veer a little off. But if you have the right though, and keep rifles, pistols, revolvers, hey, that's a God-given right by our forefathers. So.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, we're going to have to wrap this up. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to remember.
Rob,
yes.
Can I make one prediction real quick?
What's that?
Ukraine's going to hit the Russians in the east. The Russian Ukrainians. Russia's going to jump over the border and hit the Ukrainians. Watch it the next few days.
Oh, yeah, that's a natural reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
So
I'm sure
that.
the U.S. is encouraging, or the NATO is encouraging them to do so.
They've already told the Russians to move their tanks away from their own border. So
it's going to be
my prediction.
It's going to be Georgia all over again.
Well, the natural response of any self-respecting people to that is to say to them, "Go to hell."
Right. All right, ladies
we
and
need
gentlemen.
to get out of NATO.
All
Thank
right.
you, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
All right, take it easy. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Mike. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, God bless you all, and God bless America.